Sartor Resartus. Sartor Resartus, meaning The Tailor Retailored, is an 1836 novel by Thomas Carlyle, first published as a serial in Fraser's magazine in November 1833 to August 1834. The novel purports to be a commentary on the thought and early life of a German philosopher called Diogenes Teufelsdrockh, which translates as God-born devil dung, author of a tome entitled Clothes, Their Origin and Influence, but is actually a poem. The work is, in part, a parody of Hegel and of German idealism more generally. However, Teufelsdrockh is also a literary device with which Carlyle can express difficult truths. Summary: the novel takes the form of a long review by a somewhat cantankerous, unnamed editor for the English publication Fraser's magazine, in which the novel was first serialized without any distinction of the content as fictional, who is, upon request, reviewing the fictional German book Clothes, Their Origin and Influence, by the fictional philosopher Diogenes Teufelsdrockh, professor of things in general, at Where University. The editor is clearly flummoxed by the book, first struggling to explain the book in the context of contemporary social issues in England, some of which he knows Germany to be sharing as well, then conceding that he knows Teufelsdrockh personally, but that even this relationship does not explain the curiosities of the book's philosophy. The editor remarks that he has sent requests back to the Teufelsdrockh's office in Germany for more biographical information, hoping for further explanation, and the remainder of Book 1 contains summaries of Teufelsdrockh's book, including translated quotations, accompanied by the editor's many objections, many of them buttressed by quotations from Goethe and Shakespeare. The review becomes longer and longer due to the editor's frustration at the philosophy and his desire to expose its outrageous nature. At the final chapter of Book 1, the editor has received word from Teufelsdrockh's office in the form of several bags of paper scraps, rather esoterically organized into bags based on the signs of the Latin zodiac, on which are written autobiographical fragments. At the writing of Book 2, the editor has somewhat organized the fragments into a coherent narrative. As a boy, Teufelsdrockh was left in a basket on the doorstep of a childless couple in the German country town of Entepfuhl, Duck Pond. His father a retired sergeant of Frederick the Great, and his mother a very pious woman, who to Teufelsdrockh's gratitude raises him in utmost spiritual discipline. In very flowery language, Teufelsdrockh recalls at length the values instilled in his idyllic childhood, the editor noting most of his descriptions originating in intense spiritual pride. Teufelsdrockh eventually is recognized as being clever and sent to Hinterschlag, slap behind, gymnasium. While there, Teufelsdrockh is intellectually stimulated and befriended by a few of his teachers, but frequently bullied by other students. His reflections on this time of his life are ambivalent. Glad for his education, but critical of that education's disregard for actual human activity and character, as regarding both his own treatment and his education's application to politics. While at university, Teufelsdrockh encounters the same problems, but eventually gains a small teaching post and some favor and recognition from the German nobility. While interacting with these social circles, Teufelsdrockh meets a woman he calls Blumine, goddess of flowers. The editor assumes this to be a pseudonym and abandons his teaching post to pursue her. She spurns his advances for a British aristocrat named Towgood. Teufelsdrockh is thrust into a spiritual crisis and leaves the city to wander the European countryside. But even there encounters Blumine and Towgood on their honeymoon. He sinks into a deep depression, culminating in the celebrated everlasting no, disdaining all human activity. Still trying to piece together the fragments The editor surmises that Teufelsdrockh either fights in a war during this period, or at least intensely uses its imagery, which leads him to a center of indifference, and on reflection of all the ancient villages and forces of history around him, ultimately comes upon the affirmation of all life in the everlasting yes. The editor, in relief, promises to return to Teufelsdrock's book, hoping with the insights of his assembled biography to glean some new insight into the philosophy. End of the summary. Thank you.